Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning. We can hear you.
Oh, good morning. Okay. I got something on my screen. I need the girl to get off of it, so
Okay.
I'll need a minute. I'm all set to go.
Okay. All right. We'll start off the record and then give you some time.
Okay.
Good morning. Before we go on the record today, are there any matters that we need to address off the record? Hearing none. Madam Court Reporter, are you ready to go on the record?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, I just got that thing. I'm slowly learning how to do this stuff. I'm getting there. But yeah, I'm all set.
Great.
So
Thank you.
whenever you're ready, sir.
Good morning. This is the continuation of case number 9655. When we last left off yesterday, we were discussing the briefing schedule after this trial. I looked back at our procedural schedule, and it appears that initial briefs are due on May 21st, and reply briefs are due on June 1st. The page limitation will be similar to the BGE multi-year rate increase procedures, where we instituted a 75-page limit for initial briefs and 50-page limit for reply briefs. So please mark that down and note those dates. Are there any matters we need to address before staff calls their next witness?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Lloyd Spivak, the Commission staff. Before we call our next witness, I would like to enter the testimony of Drew McAuliffe into the evidentiary record. Mr. McAuliffe's testimony was pre-marked. His direct testimony is Staff Exhibit 1, and his rebuttal testimony is Staff Exhibit 2. And I would like to move those into the evidentiary record.
Is there any challenge to the authenticity of Staff Exhibits 1 and 2? Hearing no objections, Staff Exhibits 1 and 2 are moved into evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Spivak, you may call your next witness.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. The Commission staff calls Dr. Huidong Lee to the stand, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Lee.
Good morning.
Please, good morning. Please raise your right hand. Court reporter, you're on mute.
Doctor, do you swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in the matter that pending is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Spivak, your witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Dr. Lee.
Good morning.
Do you have in front of you a document captioned in Commission Case number 9655, entitled Direct Testimony and Exhibits of Huidong Lee on behalf of the staff of the Public Service Commission of Maryland, confidential version, dated March 3rd, 2021?
Yes, I do.
And does this document consist of 37 pages, 2 exhibits, one of which is confidential?
Yes,
Did you prepare this document, or was it prepared under your direct supervision?
yes, I prepared.
And do you have any additions, deletions, or other corrections you would like to make at this time?
Yes, there are some small minor corrections. And the first one on the page 4, line 7, at the end of this paragraph is missing the period. So the
I'm
next
sorry,
one,
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
yeah, at page 4, line 7, at the end of this sentence, the missing the period. Okay, next is the same page, line 9 is the same, missing the period. So if you got this, the next one, go to page 14, line 15. And here that says 0 and 1. Actually, the correlation coefficient can be a minus plus 1, so can change to absolute value 1. So if this is, you get it? So now
Yes.
the next one is page 26 on the line 3. And this says significance. I think should be a insignificance.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. With those changes, if the questions were asked of you today as they are asked in this document, would your answers be the same?
Yes,
And do you adopt this document as part of your sworn testimony in this
Yes.
proceeding?
sorry, yes,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, staff requests that Dr. Lee's direct testimony be marked as confidential version be marked as Staff Exhibit 23C.
So marked.
Dr. Lee, do you also have in front of you a public version of the direct testimony document we just described?
yes,
And do you have the same corrections in that document?
yes,
Okay. And do you adopt this document as part of your sworn testimony in this proceeding?
yes,
Mr. Chairman, staff requests that the public version of Dr. Lee's direct testimony be marked as Staff Exhibit 23.
So marked.
And finally, Dr. Lee, do you have in front of you a document captioned in case number 9655, titled Sir Rebuttal Testimony and Exhibits of Huidon Lee on behalf of the staff of the Public Service Commission of Maryland, and dated April 20th, 2021.
yes, I do.
Does this document consist of 27 pages and 2 exhibits?
Yes,
And do you have any additions, deletions, or other corrections you would like to make at this time?
yes, there's one here. On page 3, line 19, and I read is if a mobile defines the key independent variables, comma, monthly dummy variables, comma. And so that's the corrections, just add 2 commas there.
Okay, thank you. Did you prepare this document, or was it prepared under your direct supervision?
Yes, I do.
And with the corrections that you just made, if the questions were asked of you today as they were asked in this document, would your answers be the same?
Yes,
Do you adopt this document as part of your sworn testimony in this proceeding?
yes,
Mr. Chairman, staff requests that the rebuttal testimony of Dr. Lee be marked as Staff Exhibit 24.
So marked.
Staff further moves that the public and confidential versions of Dr. Lee's direct testimony, Staff Exhibits 23 and 23C, and the rebuttal testimony of Dr. Lee, Staff Exhibit 24, be admitted into the evidentiary record.
No objection. Staff Exhibit 23, 23C, and 24 are moved into evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the witness is available for cross-examination.
We'll begin with Mr. Mike Keel.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and Dr. Lee. I have no questions today for Dr. Lee.
Thank you. Do any other party wish to examine Dr. Lee? Hearing none, any questions from commissioners for Dr. Lee? Seeing none, Dr. Lee, thank you. You're excused.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You may call your next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James Greger on behalf of staff. Staff calls Roger Austin to the stand.
Good morning, Mr. Austin. If you could please raise your right hand. Thank you.
Do you swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You're a witness, Mr. Greger.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name and business address for the record, Mr. Austin.
Roger Austin, 6 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Austin, do you have before you a document captioned in case number 9655 titled Direct Testimony and Exhibits of Roger F. Austin, consisting of a cover page and 46 substantive pages, one exhibit, and a reference attachment dated March 3rd, 2021?
Yes.
Was this document prepared by you or under your direct supervision?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Austin, do you have before you a document titled Errata to the Direct Testimony of Roger F. Austin, consisting of 2 pages dated April 23rd, 2021?
Yes.
Do the corrections reflected in your errata represent a material change to any of your positions?
It represents a change of about $30 million. Say $25 million.
Do you have any additional changes to make to your direct testimony?
No.
If you were asked the same questions today, would your responses be the same or similar?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to mark for identification the documents that have been pre-marked Staff Exhibit 26 and 26E, the direct testimony of Roger F. Austin and the errata to the direct testimony of Roger F. Austin.
26 and 26E as in echo, so marked.
Thank you. Mr. Austin, do you have before you a document captioned in case number 9655 entitled The Surrebuttal Testimony of Roger F. Austin, consisting of a cover page and 16 substantive pages and a reference attachment dated April 20, 2021?
Yes.
Was this document prepared by you or under your direct supervision?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or corrections to make to this document?
Yes. On page 12, lines 4 and 5, the sentence there, the word greater appears 2 times. replace the word greater with less. So that sentence should now read, this is roughly $4.2 million less than the company estimated and $5.9 million less than I was able to estimate with the information given to me.
Any additional changes, Mr. Austin?
No.
With these changes, if you were asked the same questions again, would your answers be the same or similar?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to mark for identification the document that has been pre-marked Staff Exhibit 27, the rebuttal testimony of Roger Austin.
So marked.
Your Honor, staff moves to admit Staff Exhibits 26, 26 Echo, or 26E, and 27 into the administrative record.
Hearing no objection, staff exhibits 26, 26 Echo, and 27 are moved into evidence.
Thank you. This witness is available for cross-examination.
Thank you. We'll begin the cross with the company.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Austin.
Good morning, Mr. MYP.
I have a couple questions for you today. Do you have your direct testimony with you, sir? I think it's been marked as Exhibit 26, and I'm focusing on page 34, lines 11 and 12. So let me know when you're there, sir.
I'm there.
And there you note that Pepco has the highest vegetation management costs of the 6 major utilities in Maryland, and that, quote, there may be a reasonable explanation for this, correct?
Yes.
And you're aware, sir, of the work group report on vegetation management that revealed some differences in costs incurred by the Maryland electric distribution companies, is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to be marked Pepco Exhibit 54. This is staff's response to Pepco DR 12-3. Mr. Austin, could you pull up Pepco Exhibit 54? Let me know when you have it.
I'm there.
And are you the sponsor of this data request, sir?
Yes.
And is your answer there true and correct?
Yeah, the response is yes. And
I would move the admission of Exhibit 54, Your Honor, and I'm going to have some questions on that.
Exhibit 54 of Pepco is moved into evidence.
You would agree with me, sir, that Pepco has costs for log removals and wetland delineations that other Maryland EDCs do not have, correct?
yes.
And you would agree with me those are reasonable explanations for the cost difference, is that correct?
Yes.
And you would agree with me, sir, that over the years, Pepco's vegetation management costs have been decreasing, is that correct?
Yes.
I need you, sir, to focus on your sir rebuttal testimony now. I believe that's been marked as Staff Exhibit 27. And I'm focusing there, sir, on, I believe it's page 18. Let me know when you're there.
Sorry,
Well,
but
well,
to
yeah,
16.
I was going to say it can't be page 18. I'm sorry. I am focusing on lucky page 13, line 18. My apologies, sir.
I'm there.
And I'm focusing specifically on lines 18 through 30. And you note there that you reviewed the 69 kV program in case number 9206. And at lines 22 through 26, you list the 3 reasons you raised in case number 9602 for disallowing these these costs. Is that correct?
Yes.
And those are the same reasons that staff, and you were the staff witness in that case, put forward in case number 9602, correct?
Yes.
And the only new reasons that you offer in this testimony is that the costs have increased. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask, and I believe I marked this with Mr. Stevens and Mr. Alvarez, but it's Pepco Exhibit 53. Mr. Austin, could you get a copy of Pepco Exhibit 53, which is the PULJ's order in case number 9652, and let me know when you have that up, sir?
It's open.
All right. And I'm focusing for my question right now on page 30, the bottom of the page there. Let me know when you're at the bottom of the page. It's the paragraph starting with next. Are you with me, sir?
Yes. Slowly getting there.
Okay, let me know. I don't mean to rush you.
Page 30, last paragraph. Yes. I'm there.
All right. And there it says, Mr. Austin acknowledged the prudency review had not been conducted as part of this proceeding, that individual projects and aging infrastructure had not been reviewed, and that the granular review referenced in staff's case number 9353 had not been conducted. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the same thing is true in this proceeding, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Looking at page 31 of that same order, sir, it's citing Chief Engineer Borkowski, and it says that Chief Engineer Borkowski considered the 69 kV feeder rebuild to be an aging infrastructure and resiliency program that needed to be done because of other drivers. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it indicates that the other drivers referenced, which staff agrees with, were that the lines were between 40 and 60 years old, and the company would be addressing the feeders due to their age. Is that correct?
Repeat that question. Who said that, Mr. Borkowski?
Yes, Chief Engineer Borkowski, and that's at page 31 of the PULJ's decision.
Okay, if he said that, he said that.
And that's in the decision at page 31, sir?
Oh, I see it. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And you would agree with me, would you not, that Pepco has an obligation to replace its aging infrastructure?
Yes.
And it's my understanding in that case, looking at the bottom of page 31 of Pepco Exhibit 53 there, that staff utilized the ICE calculator for its results, and that staff agreed that Pepco's reliability plan was cost effective based on the ICE calculator. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that included the 69 kV feeder rebuild, correct?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, I'd ask that Pepco Exhibit 53 be admitted to the record.
Okay, so 53 was not admitted yesterday, I understand.
I do not believe I asked that it be admitted yesterday, Your Honor. If I did, I'm sorry, it's duplicative, but I don't believe I did it.
Hearing no objection, Pepco 53 is moved into evidence.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that Pepco Exhibit 65 be marked. And that's portions of the transcript from case number 9602. Mr. Austin, let me know when you have that available for your review.
You want me to go to page 612? Is that it?
Yeah, 612. And I'm focused, you've read my mind. 612, and I'm focusing on lines 6 through 21 there, sir.
I'm sorry, Mr. Michael, which exhibit?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. It's Pepco Exhibit 65, and that's portions of the transcript from 9602, pages 611 through 613.
Yes, I'm there.
And you would agree with me that you still haven't done any analysis on the cost to build storage or microgrids to prevent the need to rebuild the 69 kV lines, or whether or not such action would be cost beneficial, correct?
No, we haven't done any of that.
Okay. And you would agree with me, sir, that non-wires alternatives do not supplant the need for Pepco to replace its aging infrastructure. Isn't that correct?
I agree.
And if you could, sir, looking at Exhibit 65, and now I'm on page 613, focusing at lines 8 through 21.
Yes.
You haven't done any new calculations in this proceeding that dispute the results of the DOE ICE calculator calculations done in 9602, isn't that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I would move the admission of Pepco Exhibit 65, Your Honor.
No objection. 65, Pepco is moved into evidence.
Mr. Austin, I want to move to your sir rebuttal testimony, Exhibit 27, and I'm focusing on page 14 of your sir rebuttal. The second question there.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. Now, in your sir rebuttal, you state Pepco did not perform an avoided outage cost benefit analysis for the 69 kV rebuild program. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And staff did not perform an avoided cost benefit analysis for the 69 kV feeder rebuild program either, correct?
No. Yes, that's correct.
And you would agree with me, would you not, sir, that an avoided outage cost benefit analysis is a resiliency type of analysis, correct?
It's a resiliency type analysis. I don't know what that means.
Okay, well, it's an analysis that determines whether or not something is cost beneficial based on resiliency rather than reliability.
No, you can do cost benefit analysis on reliability as well as resiliency.
Okay, but do you believe that the avoided outage cost benefit analysis is more for reliability or for resiliency?
You can do a cost benefit analysis for both. It's going to be a lot more difficult to perform a cost benefit analysis for a resiliency type program. I agree with that. But you can do a cost benefit analysis for either a resiliency program or a reliability program.
And you would agree with me, would you not, sir, that there's no accepted industry standard for measuring the benefits of a resiliency? Isn't that correct?
No, I won't agree with you. There's no standard, but I have read several white papers in the last couple of years where utilities have been doing cost benefit analysis for these types of projects. They involve a lot of complex mathematical analyses. For example, you would need to determine the statistical probability of a hurricane hitting, in any given year, the probability of a derecho hitting in any given year, a snowmageddon event hitting in any given year, but that information is out there. And then once you have that, okay, once the event hits, what type of outages do you experience? You put all of that data together, and you can come up with a reasonably accurate, a reasonably good cost-benefit analysis. And other utilities have been doing it, and I know Pepco has some of the best and brightest people, so I'm sure they too can do it.
Let me ask you this: what utilities have been doing it, Mr. Austin?
There's one in New Jersey who did a cost benefit analysis after. It's not public service energy and gas. It's a small utility. So there were a couple others in Florida. I think Florida Power and Light. I've seen white papers from them. So there are other utilities that that do these types of analyses to determine, whether to go ahead with these big resiliency type projects. It can be done.
All
It's
right.
difficult, but it can be done.
All right. I ask to Pepco Exhibit 67 be marked, and that is transcript pages 648 through 649 of PSC hearing 9602. Let me know when you have that up on your screen, Mr. Austin.
Pepco Exhibit what, 6 to 7?
Yes, 67. It's portions of the transcript. And I'm focusing there on page 649 and your answer to Judge McLean's question, starting on lines 10 through 23. Let me know when you're there, sir.
Okay, I don't have that exhibit. Just go ahead and tell me what it is.
Well, maybe
Just
your
a second.
counsel, maybe Mr. Greger can send that to you if you don't have it.
I mean, I can send it to you right now, Roger.
Or
Go
I
ahead.
can read it and you can confirm.
Yeah, since it's my words, I think you say you read and go ahead.
All right. Judge McLean asked you at line 7, and are you aware of another way that exists to properly account for resiliency? And at line 10, you say, I do not. I mean, I've read widely about various ways to look at resiliency, the benefits of resiliency, but I don't think there is any accepted industry standard as yet for measuring the benefits of resiliency. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then further down at lines 20 through 23, you say, there's no real good way to measure it. The only way right now is to sit down and hash it out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And sir, you would agree with me that Pepco is rebuilding 13 of its 69 kV feeders, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree with me that Pepco has 51 overhead 69 kV feeders, correct?
I accept that. Subject to check.
All right. I guess the point I'm trying to make is Pepco's not rebuilding all of its 69 kV overhead feeders. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now you would agree with me, would you not, Mr. Austin, that your testimony does not provide any analysis of the ability of Pepco to achieve top quartile reliability performance on a going forward basis if the commission were to adopt staff's recommended capital reductions and disallowances? Is that correct?
It's a long question, Mr. Mikey. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, and I'll slow down. I'm sorry. Your testimony, Mr. Austin, does not provide any analysis of the ability of Pepco to achieve top quartile reliability performance on a going forward basis if the commission were to adopt staff's recommended capital reductions and disallowances, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Austin, your testimony does not provide any analysis of the ability of Pepco to continue to meet the commission's service quality and reliability standards on a going forward basis if the commission were to adopt your recommended capital reductions and disallowances. Is that correct?
Correct.
I have one more line of questions for you, sir. If you could turn to page 6 of your sir rebuttal testimony, pages 6 and 7. And at pages 6 and 7, you're discussing the company's Trip Saver program. Is that correct?
Yes.
And there you say, based on your investigation, you've withdrawn your adjustment. You find that the Trip Saver program is very cost effective, correct?
Yes. Did I say very?
You did at line 1.
Okay.
At a very cost effective rate. I'm not trying to trick you, sir.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your time today, Mr. Austin. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your testimony.
No problem.
Any other party wish to examine this witness? Mr. Greger, do you have any redirect?
A short redirect, Your Honor. So, Mr. Austin, you remember Mr. Mike Hill asking you questions related to Pepco's 69 kV feeder rebuild program?
Yes.
Okay. How would you characterize the cost increases of Pepco 69 kV feeder rebuild program in the present case, as opposed to the program's costs as outlined in case number 9602?
Very significant. Very significant.
Thank you. Now, one more question. In the present multi-year rate plan application, has the company identified any new or additional benefits associated with the 69 kV feeder rebuild program than those benefits that were identified in case number 9602?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Austin. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Your Honor, I neglected to move to admit Exhibit 67. I'm sorry. I would move to admit Exhibit 67.
No objection. Pepco Exhibit 67 is moved into evidence. Do the commissioners have questions of the witness? Mr. Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to get to I wanted to talk to you about I believe it's the corrective maintenance program, Mr. Austin.
Yes.
You said that you were concerned with a large increase than what was proposed for the same time period in 9353. So 9353 was, what time period were we? What was the test year and any forward adjustments for 9353?
No, it wasn't a test year. It wasn't a rate case. It was 2018.
Oh, right. Sorry.
It was 2018, and you may recall that the 6 Maryland utilities that were subject to RM43 were trying to get their proposed reliability standards approved, and they presented the commission with what were supposed to be good faith budgets of what it would take each of them to achieve their proposed reliability standards. And I believe the commission seriously looked at those budgets prior to approving each utility's approved standards. Now, having said that, I don't think it would be unreasonable to expect that those budgets could be exceeded by 5, 6, 7%. And if that had been the case, I would have simply noted in this case that Pepco's budget in this MYT to achieve the reliability standards that they proposed back in 2018 for 2021 to 2023 is 5 to 6% greater than what was presented back then, but I'm not going to recommend a disallowance. But a 24% increase, I think that's significant.
Okay, right. So that was I apologize. That was the reliability proceeding. So did you listen to Mr. Stewart's cross-examination?
Yes.
Okay, and was there anything in that rejoinder or in his testimony on the stand that helped you to feel more comfortable with the increase in corrective maintenance?
No, he said that the 2023 budget was just an estimate, and that you can see from looking at that table that I referenced in my testimony, that table from case number 9353, that the 2023 budget was identical to the 2022 budget numbers. Okay, fine. So the 2023 budget is an estimate, a rough estimate. So by saying that, I assume that he is saying that the 2022 budget is supposed to be closer to what they expect it to be. Yet, if you look at what they're proposing in their 2022 budget in this MYP case, the 2022 budget is even more out of whack with case number 9353. I think the 2022 budget is 10 point something million more than what they proposed in 9353, or 38% greater, whereas the 2023 budget is about $8 million more, or just about 30% greater than what they proposed back then. So I don't accept his explanation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Austin. And you acknowledge that the commission has in the past not disallowed the 69 kV program, right?
I acknowledge that, yes.
Right. Do you think that, in your view, is there any, this program's been going on for 10 years, is that right? 10 or 12 years?
Yes, been going on under a lot of different nomenclature.
Mm-hmm. Right. So would you have any expectation that over time there would be a potential reduction in the cost because you've sort of you've addressed the worst of them, and now you're sort of moving up and then kind of getting to ones that are potentially not as problematic as the earlier facilities that were being replaced?
You would think so.
You would think so. Is it potentially the opposite? Because now you've picked the low-hanging fruit, and now the other ones are the other ones potentially could be more expensive.
I think with this rebuild program, let's step back. They proposed when they first brought this for in a rate case, as far as I know, back in 9602, they had these 13 rebuilds. They said they were going to do it for $428 million. I think they've only completed one to date. Maybe they're working on a second. Yet the cost to complete the remainder of the 13 has now gone up to 650. I don't know what accounts for that increase. I'm at a loss to explain it.
Okay, so did you ask Pepco why, to explain the cost increase?
No.
No, okay. Did Pepco present any evidence explaining what might result from the increase in cost from 9602 to the present?
No.
Okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you very much, Mr. Austin.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Herman just asked my one question, which was about the rebuttal testimony on page 15, which questions the increase in the cost of the 69 kV feeder and the failure of the company's witnesses to address the issue. And I was simply going to ask, had anything come up in the proceedings since the submittal of the rebuttal testimony that answered that? Commissioner Herman just asked it. Mr. Austin just answered it, so I have no question.
Thank you. Commissioner Richard.
I also had a question just about the 69 kV. And Mr. Austin, your recommendation is essentially just to put it on pause so that an additional, I guess, analysis could be done on less expensive hardening alternatives, because you weren't satisfied with the analysis that's been done to date. Is that correct?
Yes. If you look at the company said that they had they examined 5 alternatives, but when you look at it, there were really no alternatives. Those 5 alternatives were: alternative 1, do nothing; alternative 2, rebuild 12 of the 13 feeders in a 12-year period; alternative 3, rebuild all 13 feeders over 20 years. Alternative 4, rebuild all 13 feeders over 15 years. Alternative 5, rebuild all 13 over 12 years. Those are not real alternatives. So we would like them to, truly get together with stakeholders, as as currently recommended under the new comprehensive distribution system planning paradigm that's being championed by Nehru Gnazio, to look for true alternatives, Um, so
Great.
that's what I would like. Yeah.
Oh. Is your answer complete?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Then there was some discussion about possible impacts on reliability and ability to meet the various reliability and just performance metrics. It doesn't sound like you've done an analysis. There's an assertion by the company that there could be some impacts, but is there anything that was in the company filing that gave you pause that there could potentially be adverse impacts if we were to disallow some or all of this request?
Well, there was nothing in the company's filing, but in an effort to try and be as reasonable as possible, in my rebuttal testimony, I did acknowledge that there may be some aging infrastructure along the 6 to 9 kV feeder circuits that need to be replaced, and we would have no problem with that. But this whole complete rebuild of all of these 6 to 9 kV feeders, the company just has not provided us with any analysis to show that it's necessary.
Okay, and just to be sure that since this is a 3-year request for rate making, that we allow some amount of money to ensure that the program doesn't come to a complete stop, or what would it be a prudent, I guess, decision by the commission on that?
So we're saying if there's any construction that's ongoing, then continue, finish that. If there are any, really if there's aging infrastructure that's on the verge of truly failing, then we would have no problem with the company replacing those discrete aging infrastructure, but not the whole 6. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation then, if as far as what allowance we should make then? Less, I'm assuming it would be less than the $600 to $700 million.
So I believe, and again in Suributtal, we did say that if the commission orders a cessation of the program, then the company should be prepared to present what projects are currently on the way, what 6 to 9 kV rebuild projects are currently on the way, and you would allow those projects to continue. You would disallow the ones that have not been started, the ones that are just currently in engineering and design. There's no current construction going on.
Okay, and what would the process be to ensure we had that number for this case?
The company would need to provide those numbers. I'm not sure what the procedure would be to go about doing that, because I do not know what what 69 kV projects are currently being rebuilt. What 69 kV projects are currently in construction. So the company would need to provide that information. And once we know that, then we can say, okay, this is the amount of money you need to provide for that ongoing construction.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think, oh, with your recommendation on this would be a good pilot test case for evaluation of alternatives. Is that, could that be something done in a timely fashion to ensure, again, we don't have a complete cessation of this program for 3 years?
I believe it can be done in a timely fashion. And Commissioner, another thing too, while you would want to get stakeholder involvement, not only to find a sound, cost-effective technical solution that ratepayers could get on board with, but I think it's also important that we find solutions that take aesthetics into consideration. Last summer, the Commission's Consumers Affairs Division received complaints, which, from a gentleman representing a community where the residents were very unhappy with the aesthetic results of Pepco's Central Avenue 69 kV feeder rebuild. And of course, I was forced to respond to him. I basically told him that the commission had reviewed and approved the project and the company was doing no wrong. But when,
Mr. Austin, stop you there. You're not being responsive to the commissioner's question.
Oh, okay. Maybe I.
Okay. I was just really interested in just the, again, your proposal for the pilot case. I think you probably, offered some good information there, and I would concur that that was, I think one of the reasons for the multi-year rate plan is to hopefully provide that type of stakeholder involvement, public involvement. So with that, thank you, Mr. Austin, for your answers, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do council have questions based on the commissioner's responses or the witnesses' responses to the commissioners?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Herman talked to you about the corrective maintenance budget program in 9353. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
And you would agree with me that those budgets were based on 2017 information. Is that correct?
It was done in the summer of 2018.
And it was based on a 2017 budget. Is that correct?
I don't know. You guys presented it to us in 2018, okay. Summer of 2018.
Okay, so the summer of 2018. And you would agree with me that that filing would demonstrate that it was a budget based on 2017. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay, and you would agree with me budgets. Let me move to Commissioner Richard. I won't belabor that point. Commissioner Richard asked you what amount Pepco was spending on current 69 kV program projects. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you said you don't know the amount. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's because you didn't ask Pepco that question, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You also, in response to Commissioner Richard, talked about the need to take aesthetics into account. Do you recall that answer?
Yes.
And is the staff supportive of if aesthetics raise the cost of the program, that those costs are appropriate for recovery from customers?
If the aesthetics alone were to raise the cost with no further benefit, probably not.
Okay, so if there's no benefit from the aesthetics and they raise the cost, you wouldn't support aesthetic changes, is that correct?
Probably not.
Okay. And do you know whether or not Pepco did indeed talk to customers and provide information about work they were doing in their community with respect to the 69 kV rebuild, specifically on Central Avenue?
Yes, the community gentleman I spoke to said that he was in contact with a Pepco liaison.
And Pepco provided information to the community about that project, is that correct?
He did say so.
Those are all the questions I have. Thank you so much, Mr. Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mikey.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. You are now excused.
Thank you.
Mr. Greger, please call your next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff would like to call Michael Jang to the stand, please.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Jang. Please raise your right hand.
Do you swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your witness, Mr. Greger.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name and business address for the record, please.
My name is Wojun Jang. My business address is 6 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Jang, do you have before you a document captioned in case number 9655 entitled as your direct testimony and exhibits dated March 3rd, 2021? And this would be your confidential version of direct.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Now, do you have the public version of your direct available before you?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Now, Mr. Jang, do you have before you a document titled errata to the direct testimony of your direct testimony dated April 14th, 2021?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Now, were these documents prepared by you or under your direct supervision?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, do you have any corrections to make to these documents?
I do have one correction on my direct testimony. I believe that the page number should be consistent with both the public and the confidential version. On page 12 of my direct testimony, my footnote 19, the footnote should reference staff data request number 5423, not 2354.
Thank you. Do you have any further corrections to make?
No, that is all.
And if you were asked these same questions again, would your answers be the same or similar?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, I would like to mark for identification the document that has been pre-marked Staff Exhibit 28 as Mr. Jang's public direct testimony. And if we could mark his confidential version as 28C.
So marked.
And his errata as 28 Echo, 28E.
So marked.
Thank you. Mr. Jang, do you have before you a document captioned in case number 9655 entitled as your sir rebuttal testimony and exhibits dated April 20th, 2021?
Yes, I do.
Was this document prepared by you or under your direct supervision?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or corrections to make to this document?
I do not.
And if you were asked these same questions again, would your answers be the same or similar?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to mark for identification the document that has been pre-marked Staff Exhibit 29, the sir rebuttal testimony of Mr. Jang.
So marked.
Your Honor, staff moves to admit Staff Exhibits 28, 28C, 28E, and 29 into the administrative record.
Hearing no objection, staff's exhibits 28, 28 Charlie, 28 Echo, and 29 are moved into evidence.
Thank you. This witness is available for cross-examination.
We'll begin the cross with counsel for the town of Kensington.
I actually have no questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Music. Counsel for Pepco.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Zhang.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about your testimony. Could you please turn to page 6 of your rebuttal testimony?
I am here.
And I'm looking at the question beginning at line 1.
Okay.
Here you maintain your opposition to the company's proposed use of Empower funds for the streetlight LED program, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as a threshold matter, could you please turn to what has been pre-marked as Pepco Exhibit 73? This is order number 89679.
I have it up.
Okay, and this was issued by the commission on December 18th, 2020. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and in this order, the commission authorizes the transition to the 2021 through 2023 Empower program cycle and approves various proposals by the program administrators. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, could you please turn to page 38 of the order?
I am there.
And I'm looking at paragraph 68.
Yes.
Now, you'd agree with me that Pepco proposed a smart LED streetlights conversion project, which aims to convert utility-owned streetlights to LEDs in order to reduce energy consumption. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and looking at the end of that same paragraph, the commission states that it approves the programs proposed by Pepco without the inclusion of the smart LED or SLED, finding that more information is required prior to making SLED determinations, and that any future rate case filed by Pepco would be the more appropriate location for such determinations to be made. Do you see that, sir?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you would agree with me that the commission has determined that this is the appropriate proceeding to address the company's streetlight initiative as it relates to Empower. Is that correct?
Yes, so I believe the commission made this order with consideration of staff's comments for the 2021 to 2023 program cycle comments. And I believe this is subject to check because I did not directly write that section. But I believe staff's position was that there wasn't enough information at the time provided to give a full analysis of the company's proposal for the smart LED streetlight initiative. And that because the company was also going to file in the current rate case their proposal, that more information would be available in this current case, which is why staff recommended that it be later, it would be determined at a future rate case.
Okay, and you've actually anticipated my next question, Mr. Zhang, I was going to ask, wasn't this determination by the commission consistent with the recommendation of staff? And you just answered that it was.
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, staff is supporting the company's proposed LED streetlight initiative, isn't that correct?
Yes, it is supportive of the company's smart LED streetlight initiative, excluding the use of Empower funds to offset the customer monthly rate increases.
Okay, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
That they may experience. Yep.
Okay, and just to be clear, staff is supporting the inclusion of the smart nodes as part of the LED streetlight initiative, as opposed to the smart sensors. Is that correct?
Yes, so staff is supportive of the smart nodes and inclusion of the smart LED streetlight conversion proposal, but staff is not supportive of the smart sensor pilot as indicated by witness Harris in her testimony.
Okay. Now, isn't it correct that under the rates proposed by the company in its new LED tariff, some customers may experience an increase in their rates because of the LED streetlight initiative?
Yes, so I believe that increase was estimated to be approximately 4%, approximately 3.9% based on the company's estimates. This would be on the company-wide level and not at town-specific, for example, because you would look at all the streetlights being converted instead of specific towns which may have only certain types of streetlights.
Okay, but you're not disputing that under the company's proposal, certain customers will actually be charged a higher rate under the tariff, correct?
Yes, so some customers will experience higher rates and some may experience lower rates depending on the type of streetlight conversion they experience.
Okay. And isn't it correct that the company is proposing to use Empower funds to ensure that such customers would not experience essentially a net increase in their rates under the new LED tariff?
Yeah, so that is the company's proposal, that Empower funds are used to basically offset the rate increases that a customer may experience based on the streetlight conversion for company-owned streetlights. But as I indicated in my rebuttal testimony, on page or just my direct answer rebuttal testimony, I don't believe that the use of the Empower funds is, I guess, appropriate in this case.
Okay, so by opposing the company's proposed use of Empower funding for such customers, staff is in fact advocating for a rate increase for such customers. Isn't that correct?
So I guess the issue is, regardless of whether or not the Empower funds are provided to the customers are going to possibly experience a rate increase. And that is because the customer does not have the ability to say, no, I don't want to upgrade my company-owned streetlight into a LED. I would like to keep my high-pressure sodium streetlight. And so the customer doesn't really have a, I guess, choice as in whether or not their streetlight is upgraded. That being said, if the company does provide the Empower funds to these customers to offset their rate increases, then that is, those funds have to come from the customers themselves, right? Because the C&I customers for Pepco pay into the Empower fund through the surcharge. And potentially that could increase the surcharge. I believe Pepco in its 2021 to 2023 plan estimated that approximately $6.7 million be provided as incentives for this program. So that would be $6.7 million that would potentially go into the C&I customer surcharge for Empower.
Okay, but you'd agree with me, Mr. Zhang, that that analysis is not in your testimony in this proceeding anywhere. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, because staff's position right now is that the Empower fund should not be approved for this use.
Okay. Could you please turn to page 7 of your rebuttal testimony?
Yes, I am there.
And I'm looking at the discussion beginning at line 15. Let me know when you're there.
Yep.
Here you discuss the company's combined heat and power. The company's combined heat and power Empower program. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And isn't it correct that here you acknowledge that the company's CHP program does not require the customer or sole user of the system to own the system?
Yes. However, as I explained further in this section, the incentives are provided to either the customer or the contractor that provides this CHP system, and those funds don't go directly to the company. Right? The company's not getting paid to.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out, Mr. Zhang.
So as I explained in the continuing in this section of my rebuttal testimony, The Empower funds are paid as incentives to both the customer and the, from my understanding at least, to the customer and the third-party contractor or vendor that is constructing this CHP system. And these funds are not going to the company to pay the company for this, I guess, system.
Mr.
Okay.
Dang, I would just caution you to pay close attention to the attorney's questions of you. You want to be mindful that you're not providing additional information that may be used to impeach your testimony. Mr. Seegers was merely asking you to confirm what you stated on page 7 of your testimony. Mr. Seegers, your next question.
Thank you. Mr. Zhang, oh, okay. And you in fact cite to a description of the company's CHP program in footnote 15 on that same page. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Could you please turn to what has been pre-marked as Pepco Exhibit 64?
I have it open.
Okay. And can you identify this as the portion of Pepco's 2021 through 2023 Empower program filing in case number 9648, to which you cite in footnote 15 of your surrebuttal testimony?
Yes.
Okay. And this describes the company's current CHP Empower program, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I'm looking at the second paragraph on what is page, it's marked as page 63 in that attachment. It says 4.6 combined heat and power program at the top.
Yes.
Okay. And looking at the second paragraph on page 63, it states that the CHP program, it requires project pre-approval, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you note on lines 18 through 19 on page 7, and I believe you alluded to this before, lines 18 through 19 on page 7 of your surrebuttal testimony, that the incentives of the CHP program are to be paid to the participants of the program, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and I believe that is covered beginning at the bottom of page 64 of Pepco Exhibit 64 and going on to the following page, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And did you listen to the live rejoinder of company witness Schatz on Tuesday?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And isn't it correct that Mr. Schatz indicated that the Empower benefits in the LED street lighting program will go directly towards offsetting rate increases in customer bills?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
okay. And isn't it also correct that Mr. Schatz stated that the LED streetlight proposal will also have an application process to determine Empower funding and the credit amount a customer may receive?
Yes, the customer must apply to receive the funding.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Zhang. Those are all the questions I have for you. Your Honor, I would like to move into evidence Pepco Exhibit 64.
Hearing no objection, Pepco Exhibit 64 is moved into evidence. Any additional parties wish to cross-examine Mr. Zhang? Seeing none, Mr. Gregor, any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Questions by commissioners. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Zhang.
Good morning.
I wanted to explore with you the kind of Gordian knot problem that the company, in my opinion, has presented to the commission with regard to using Empower funds. In as much as the company brought the proposal to the commission as part of the Empower proceedings, which is the normal course of action for any new program or proposal for Empower. And the prudency review is done there, and the cost efficacy is analysis is done there, and the energy savings is done there, and the impact on the surcharge on the bill is done there in those proceedings with just about every other aspect of Empower. But in this case, the Gordian knot aspect of this is the company in those proceedings told us they were going to give us more information because we didn't have enough in the rate case, and that it'd be filed in the rate case. Well, if the commission were to have approved that program in the Empower proceedings, we would have prejudged a rate case provision. We would have effectively been doing single issue rate making, and we couldn't do that. And so the commission said in its order that we were not going to approve it in this case. I don't know if we said at this time, but I certainly understood it to be at this time. Okay, so now we're in the rate case, but we don't have all the analysis that Empower would have. We don't even know what the surcharge impact is. I had to ask that as a bench data request, which I don't believe we received yet, but I could be corrected if I'm wrong on that. So wouldn't the appropriate solution to cutting the Gordian knot be to disapprove the use of Empower funds here and bring it back to the next Empower proceeding? What do you say?
So I believe if the commission would like to do that, they are in full right. They have every ability to do that. That is my understanding. So from my understanding, it wasn't staff's intention to kind of handle these two topics separately, which is why we recommended that, I guess, deferral of the proposal be until this current rate case. And so,
well, Mr. Zhang,
yes.
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry. I think I heard you say earlier that this rate case proceeding was the appropriate place to bring this up, and I'm probing that it's not. We don't even have all the information.
So this is subject to check, but I was informed that this is not the first case where an Empower type issue was decided outside of the Empower case itself. So it was, I believe, case number 9406, where BGE wanted to shift recovery of, I believe, their smart energy rewards and smart energy manager funds to the Empower Maryland surcharge. And the commission approved that request in its order number 87951. So I believe there are scenarios where the commission has determined Empower type issues outside of Maryland cases, although it is staff's preference that Maryland, that Empower issues are actually decided in Empower cases. But I don't think it's, yeah.
Thank you for that. Let me ask you this way. If we had approved the Empower proceeding submittal by the company, how could we ever deny it in the rate case when they told us it was coming in the rate case? We would have been prejudging that. And yet we weren't in the rate case.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Thank you for that. Did the staff do a data request or ask during these proceedings in any way, shape, or form what the impact on the surcharge would be for this program on the customers?
So I believe I sent a data request on this. It's not cited anywhere in my testimony, but I believe the response I received was Pepco had proposed its proposed its budget for this program in its 2021 to 2023 program cycle. However, because the funds aren't being used, if approved, until 2022 and 2023, then I don't believe that they've provided that surcharge analysis at this time.
Well, we'll see if they're responsive to my bench data request. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. I appreciate it very much.
Of course.
Commissioner Richard.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question very similar to Commissioner O'Donnell, and that is it possible to take an approach that we approve the program, but then defer, hopefully quickly make a decision at an Empower proceeding, with the idea that we would try to come up with a process to use Empower funds that staff could they would approve, staff would approve, and our staff would recommend.
I'm sorry, is that question to me?
Yeah, that's, I'm just trying to understand, again, how we can use, I mean, this strikes me as a program that merits consideration as a, to use Empower funds. But I'm just trying to understand if there's a way to structure the program such that staff would recommend using funds if it were distributed in a different manner. And if we could do that at an Empower hearing. So again, we don't have to wait 3 years for another rate case potentially.
So like all Empower programs, staff would have to review whether or not I believe staff's opinion right now, based on the current proposal, is that staff is not supportive of the use of Empower funds. And the main reason is that they would the Empower funds.
And I don't want to interrupt you, but I understand the staff position. I'm asking, perhaps if the funds were more directly used in incentive, for example, to encourage participation in the program. I mean, is there a different way to look at this again, so that we can use those to the maximum effect, the Empower funds to promote this important objective of LED lighting, street lighting?
So I am not sure what other changes the company could propose that would make staff, I guess, comfortable with the use of the Empower funds at this time.
Okay, so you no thoughts or recommendations. Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Jang. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jang. It's never a wrong answer to say that you don't know the answer. Any additional questions, Commissioner Herman?
Thank you. Mr. Jang, I don't know if you know the answer to this, and it's okay to say that you don't, but yesterday, I believe we heard from the town of Kensington witness. Were you listening yesterday?
Yes, I was.
We heard that, in fact, there's only 9 choices with various types of bulbs, and we've been hearing that there are 26 choices. So I'm just trying to confirm if that's your understanding, that there's 9 choices with various, I guess maybe types of light bulbs and shielding, and that's where the 26 choices comes in. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is my understanding. So the company has proposed 9, I guess you could call them styles of streetlights that a customer could choose from, and then those styles have a multitude of wattages, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Does council have any questions based on the responses to the commissioners? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Jang. You are excused. We'll take a 15-minute break at this time. So that brings us to, let's come back at 11:05. Come back at 11:05. We'll have our last witness, and then we'll have brief closing statements. In recess until 11:05. We'll go back on the record in 1 minute or less. We are back on the record. Staff may call their next and I believe final witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff calls Anna Joy Harris to the stand.
Ms. Harris, please raise your right hand.
Do you swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your witness, Mr. Gregor.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name and business address for the record, please.
My name is Anna Joy Harris. My business address is 6 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Do you have before you a document captioned in case number 9655 titled Direct Testimony and Exhibits of Anna Joy Harris, consisting of a cover page and 34 substantive pages and one attachment dated March 3rd, 2021?
I do.
Do you also have before you a document captioned in case number 9655 titled The Rebuttal Testimony of Anna Joy Harris, consisting of a cover page and 16 substantive pages with one attachment dated March 31st, 2021?
I do.
And do you have before you a document captioned in case number 9655 titled The Sir Rebuttal Testimony of Anna Joy Harris, consisting of a cover page and 14 substantive pages and one attachment dated April 20th, 2021?
I do.
Were these documents prepared by you or under your direct supervision?
They were.
Do you have any changes or corrections to make to these documents?
I do not.
If you were asked the same questions contained in these documents today, would your answers be the same or similar?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to mark for identification the documents that have been pre-marked Staff Exhibit 30 for Harris Direct Testimony, Staff Exhibit 31 for Harris Rebuttal Testimony, and Staff Exhibit 32 for Harris Sir Rebuttal Testimony.
So marked.
Thank you, Your Honor. Staff moves to admit Staff Exhibits 30, 31, and 32 into the administrative record.
Seeing no objection, those three exhibits are moved into evidence.
Thank you. This witness is available for cross-examination.
We'll begin the examination by counsel for the town of Kensington.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually have no questions for Ms. Harris either.
Thank you, Ms. Music. Counsel for Prince George's County, Maryland.
Thank you, Your Honor. We no longer have questions for this witness either. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Counsel for Pepco.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Harris.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
Good. Let's see if we can bring this home, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Could you please turn to page 9 of your Sir Rebuttal testimony, ma'am?
Okay. I'm there.
Okay, and I'm looking at the question beginning at line 11. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
Okay, here you modify your position regarding whether the company should be allowed to recover costs associated with the proposed LED streetlight initiative that are greater than the company's estimated costs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and as you indicate starting at line 17, that the company should be permitted to recover costs above the company's current estimated costs only if the number of streetlight conversions in the initiative increases, so long as the cost per additional light is not greater than the company's current per lamp cost estimate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Did you listen to the live rejoinder of a company witness Schatz on Tuesday, ma'am?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and do you recall Mr. Schatz describing the company's need for budgetary flexibility for fixing things like additional brackets and accommodating customer streetlight preferences?
Yes, I do remember that.
Okay, and do you agree that the company should have that additional budgetary flexibility to address things like that?
I stand by my position in Sir rebuttal, where I state that the company should only be allowed to recover costs above the company's current estimated cost, so long as that per light cost stays the same or below the current estimate.
Okay. Now, you would agree with me, Ms. Harris, that if during the conversion, if Pepco discovers brackets that are damaged or faulty and need to be replaced, you would expect the company to replace the bracket regardless of how many the company had originally had in their budget for, correct?
Yeah, so I agree that, safety is important and that the company should replace these brackets. The company did estimate that they would need to replace 10% of the brackets, if I recall correctly. I'm not making any claims about what the company should spend money on. My position is on what the company should be allowed to recover.
Okay. So, but would you agree with me that it would be prudent for the company to replace a bracket that is broken or needs to be fixed?
I'm not sure I can make claims on what costs are prudent or not prudent in that regard.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Are you saying that Pepco should install an LED light with a faulty bracket?
I'm not saying that.
Okay. So you would agree that it would be appropriate for the company to replace a faulty bracket before installing an LED light. Isn't that correct?
Yes, and I'm agreeing that the company, when they say that they would need to replace 10% of those brackets.
Okay. But okay. So if the company has reached the 10% threshold, let's make that assumption, and the company finds additional brackets that need to be replaced, would you agree that it's prudent for the company to replace those brackets before installing the LED lights?
Yes, I believe that those brackets should be replaced.
Okay, thank you. Now, regarding customer preferences, is it your understanding that Pepco will conduct a survey or a walk down to determine the number and types of lights that are to be replaced?
Yes.
Okay. And is it also your understanding that after conducting this survey, that Pepco will provide a recommendation of LED streetlights to customers based on what they currently have?
Yes.
Okay. And isn't it also correct that that is what the company has in its budget right now, is to replace lights that are similar to what localities and municipalities have right now?
Yes, that is my understanding.
Okay. But isn't it also correct that localities and municipalities have expressed a desire to be able to choose a different type of light if they so desire?
Yes.
Okay. And for example, in this very proceeding, the town of Kensington has submitted testimony expressing their desire to make such choices, correct?
That is correct.
And just to be clear,
Sorry, I apologize.
not a problem.
She is the wind.
Let me know when you're ready.
Thank you. One moment, please.
Take your time.
Okay, I think we're good now. Thank you.
It's hard to testify when you're being heckled, I know.
It's not even my dog. I'm dog sitting.
Oh, I feel for you. So, and just to be clear, Ms. Harris, staff is not advocating that localities and municipalities should not have the option of selecting a different light type, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, and isn't it correct that if localities and municipalities select a more expensive street light than what the company recommends for them, then the company would need to go out and procure those lights?
That is correct.
And as a consequence, that would increase the company's cost of implementing the LED streetlight initiative. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Harris. That's all I have for you, and thank you, Your Honor.
Does any other party wish to examine this witness? Mr. Gregor, any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Any questions from the commissioners? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Harris. You are excused. And Mr. Gregor, no more witnesses from staff. Is that right?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. With no additional parties seeking to make a case, we will proceed with closing statements. If the parties wish to make a brief 3-minute closing statement, of course, you'll have the opportunity to make your arguments in the post-trial briefs. We will begin with, we'll end with Pepco, but we'll begin with Office of People's Counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I know we've all been had a long week this week with and heard a lot of facts to take into consideration. And in addition to those facts, there are a couple of phrases that have been repeated, as they should be in a rate case, and those are safe, reliable service and just and reasonable rates. We all agree that Pepco has an obligation to provide safe, reliable service, but that obligation doesn't come with a blank check. Pepco's state-granted monopoly also comes with an obligation to charge just and reasonable rates. Pepco should not be allowed to recover costs for capital projects because Pepco speculates that they might at some uncertain time in the future become necessary. Pepco needs to provide evidence that its investments are actually necessary to provide safe and reliable service. Likewise, while Pepco has the responsibility to make decisions about how it develops its reliability and infrastructure, it actually pays for those projects with other people's money. Pepco has an obligation to show that it is being a good steward of ratepayers' money and making responsible decisions about how which projects ratepayers should be forced to fund. Pepco shouldn't be allowed to recover for the most expensive option when a less expensive option with comparable benefits was available. So with that, I would simply urge the commissioners that when you review the testimony and the specific costs that Pepco wants to recover, to focus on whether Pepco has provided evidence that the cost is actually necessary for its obligation to provide safe and reliable service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Other parties? Mr. Spivak. Mr. Spivak, I wish I could read lips. Oh, Ms. Francis is on the screen as well. Let's take Aoba first.
Sorry, Your Honor, it took me a few minutes to open my screen. Good morning, Your Honors. As is obvious, this commission has important decisions to make under any scenario. And although some of us may see the COVID-19 ebbing, there are ongoing and substantial impacts of the pandemic. And Pepco's proposals will place substantial long-term rate burdens on Maryland ratepayers, such as now $70 million in arrearages, $30 million in BSA under recoveries will all need to be recovered, plus other amounts that are deferred for future recovery due to the proposed revenue offsets. While the economy appears to be strong, based on large infusions of funds from the federal government, you cannot maintain high levels of deficit spending on an ongoing basis. Chairman Stanek noted at the outset of this case that it is complex. However, the fact that we all spent substantial time litigating this case, plus the fact that BG&E has a pilot utility, has an improved MYP in effect, those are not sufficient basis to approve a deficient MYP from Pepco, where customers will experience increases in their bills despite Pepco's representations. Your Honor, we appreciate the opportunity to prepare before this commission, as well as to submit testimony. We will sum up very specifically AOPA's positions in our brief and reply brief. Thank you for this opportunity. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Francis. Counsel for the Town of Kensington.
Thank you, Chairman. Pepco's witnesses uniformly emphasized in both their pre-filed testimony and at this hearing that customer choice and engagement matter to them. However, given the questions that still remain and the information that will not be truly available to customers like the Town of Kensington until after the streetlight initiative is approved, if approved, it's not immediately evident that real-life customer concerns were truly taken into account when designing the program, which is why Kensington is involved in this case. At the outset of this case, I indicated that while the town does think that the Smart Streetlight program and to some extent the Smart Nodes and the Smart Sensor Pilot program may have some utility and benefit to the town, it still very much has questions and concerns, as I think the Commission will find that many towns and municipalities do. I'd quickly like to highlight 3 points. First, community concerns were highlighted in Pepco witness Schatz's responses to my questions about whether the streetlights themselves that are being offered, which now we know are 9 options rather than 26, will be displayed in real life circumstances since they are outdoor lights. Mr. Schatz responded that the company at this time doesn't have a plan for that. They're looking into it. In addition, Mr. Schatz affirmed that even though pricing information for the lights is now available, customers will not truly know their ultimate costs until after Pepco conducts individual town surveys or the walk down, after it displays the lights, and after the towns and municipalities review their options to determine whether or not they can accept any of Pepco's 9 streetlight offerings, or if an upgrade is needed. If an upgrade is needed, the customers need to know in advance what this will cost, and since their bills will at some point feel the impact. This is just an example of the questions that remain. Second, during Mr. Watson's testimony and in his pre-filed testimony, his concerns with the necessity for proper shielding to control the glariness that is endemic to LED lighting were explained. The town's concerned with aesthetics, given the longevity of LED lights, and what Pepco is offering is not in line with the town's preferences or needs. Given that the program has to be approved for Pepco's customers to even have an opportunity to see the lights in person and determine whether any of them are suitable, it is still premature for the town to convey its support for the program. And third, Mr. Hoffman testified yesterday that what Pepco is offering is simply not sufficient. The town itself earlier this year reached out to Pepco for information regarding the program. While Pepco's government liaisons did put on a presentation for the town learned the most about this proposal by becoming involved in this case. As Mr. Hoffman testified, if you look closely at what's being offered of 26 options, there are really only 9 fixtures at multiple wattage levels. Subsequently, of the 9 fixtures being offered, only 2, Cobra and the Teardrop, potentially meet the needs and expectations of the town. Given this, and the fact that as Mr. Hoffman indicated, the use of Empower funds feels like a taxpayer-funded rate increase, the Smart Streetlight program is not designed to meet the needs of Pepco's customers and should be sent back to the drawing board with customer buy-in and education front-loaded. If the Commission does elect to approve Pepco's initiative, the lights should truly be displayed in as close to real-world circumstances as possible. The town and any other municipality who are going to be impacted by this should have the ability to choose from more than 9 design styles in order to make this a true upgrade and to justify the cost. For the reasons stated here, we appreciate the opportunity. I'm wrapping up. We appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this case, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Music. If I abbreviated your closing, you'll have an opportunity in the briefs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counsel for Montgomery County.
Thank you, Your Honor. Montgomery County doesn't have any closing argument, but I do want to thank the Commission for the opportunity to participate in this proceeding. And we look forward to participating in the future.
Thank you for providing the voice of the residents of your county. We will now turn to Commission staff. Mr. Spivak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we'll try this again. Hopefully you can hear me this time. Good morning again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. You have seen and heard the testimony of more than 30 witnesses over the course of this week, and you have at your disposal several reams of written testimony and exhibits. As you review and consider all the evidence before you, I would ask that you bear in mind that staff has already thoroughly reviewed the case the company has offered, always bearing in mind that our role is to represent the overall public interest in reviewing the case and to provide you with our best advice as to what will best serve the public interest. Staff's testimony speaks for itself, but I would like to extend my sincerest thanks and admiration to our witnesses and my colleagues for the job they have done under difficult conditions and in a very tight time frame. The evidence that they have put forth demonstrates that Pepco should be afforded a revenue increase of no more than $68,765,000 for the terms of this multi-year rate plan, with an overall authorized rate of return of 7.14%. In addition, they have laid out a number of other recommendations pertaining to the investments, programs, and tariff changes the company has proposed for the period of this multi-year plan, as well as recommendations that would help Pepco improve its next multi-year plan filing. We urge the Commission to adopt the recommendations that staff has made. They will ensure that Pepco will be able to continue providing, as Ms. Ryan put it, safe and reliable service at just and reasonable rates, and that Pepco's next multi-year plan filing is more complete than its initial filing in this proceeding. And I too would like to thank the Commission for the time it has put in this week and for the hearing it has given us.
Thank you, Mr. Spivak. We'll conclude with the statement of Pepco.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good morning. Pepco would like to again thank the Commission and parties for their participation in this proceeding, as well as for their thoughtful questions in this hearing. As evidenced by the robust record, as well as the company's pre-filing submissions, we have provided parties with thousands of pages of documentation in support of our multi-year rate plan request. During this evidentiary hearing, the Commission has heard from numerous company witnesses who have provided evidence explaining why the programs and projects which some parties seek to reduce or eliminate are essential elements of the company's well-designed reliability planning process. In addition, these witnesses also explained in detail why the company should reject any calls to extend proposed work plans and any calls as we need to replace aging infrastructure that is critical to the safe and reliable operation of our electric distribution system. In addition, our numerous witnesses explained why the company's multi-year rate plans should reflect the full scope of the work that the company intends to undertake on behalf of our customers. We have endeavored to provide, as we said before, transparent information to the parties, and we believe we have done so. Our proposal not only will also benefit customers through steady rates, and we've proposed a modest increase, which the Commission can offset if it so desires. Our proposal will fund many customer benefiting programs and investments, including important capital expenditures to maintain reliability and harden our system for the next major storm. We have listened to the concerns that have been expressed in this hearing, and we will endeavor to address them in our briefing. Again, we would like to thank you very much and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Ms. Hassan. On behalf of the Commission, I'd like to thank all of the parties, counsel, and witnesses, as well as our court reporter for keeping up with us, Linda. As I stated earlier, we will have the briefing scheduled with briefs due on May 21st and June 1st, and the Commission is scheduled to issue an order by June 28th, 2021. With that, I will...
Mr. Chairman?
Mr.
Yes. Chairman? Just one question. It's a process question before we go off the record. Could I inquire of the company as to the status of the bench data requests proffered from the bench? One proffered by Commissioner Linton, one proffered by myself, and where they are.
Yes, Your Honor. They will be provided to the Commission on Tuesday of next week.
And then my follow-up, thank you, Mrs. San. How do we incorporate that into the record if we can? how does that happen if, once we close this hearing proceeding?
I don't know if we can, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Oh, that's unfortunate because I think it's important information that's missing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Francis.
I think the other issue that is left to be decided is the page limitation on the brief. I saw there were some emails going around.
I thought I discussed that at the start of today's hearing. Page limitation will be 75 pages for initial and 50 pages for reply, which is consistent with our prior multi-year rate order in December for BGE. So 75 and 50.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, to address the comment by Commissioner O'Donnell, Pepco is willing to hold the record open until Tuesday, such that those bench DRs can be reflected in the record.
If the parties are willing to hold the record open until Tuesday upon receipt, then we'll provide a few extra days if any parties wish to voice any opposition. So we'll keep why don't we keep the record open then until next Friday? If Pepco could provide those DRs by Tuesday. And then any objections we'll have to receive before Friday. If we don't receive any objections by Friday, the record will close then. Okay, that seems to work for all. I would like to, at this point, formally dismiss all of the witnesses that were previously excused and conclude this meeting. We are